so, over the years, we've actually grown incredibly close, and I've watched her develop our company, develop her family at the same time. She's had, 2 Division I athletes now in her family, one that's graduated college, one that's just about to start college, and she's got 2 more probably on the way, in the future. And so, she's been through the toughest times in the history of our business. And right now she's living in some of the best of the times in the history of our business. And so I'm just excited to hear what she has to share, hear what she has to say. Everyone, Gretchen, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here with Dutch and the team. Looking forward to sharing a little bit about myself, the company, and answering questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. So, we got a lot of people on for chat. So, Zach, feel free to jump in anytime, my friend, with any questions that people have or anything that's going on. Gretchen, I want you to kind of just take people through, a timeline of where you've seen us go from office to office, house, from my house to where we are today, and just kind of describe, your own personal journey, during those years.
Well, as you said, we started out in your garage, and I will never forget how I came on board. I was asked to come check out the business on the educational side at that time, to do some educational consulting under Amy. Wasn't really feeling it, and they just kept asking. I said, why not? Went, checked it out, got the address, drove up, and I had called and said, you guys just sent me to a residential property. And they're like, yeah, this is Dutch's house. And I'm like, oh, okay. Walked in, met Dalen, met Erica, and then there's a whole team there. There was about 5 of us. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. Pretty intimidated at that point because I come from a completely different background, customer service oriented, but not in the realm of what you guys were doing, essentially. So gave it a shot, grew from there, and we actually uprooted maybe, 6 months, maybe less after that, into our first office in Ranch Cucamonga. From there, we grew probably about up to 10 employees with a few interns that were under your supervision through your baseball program at the college. So it was great to bring them on board and, kind of show them the ropes and started them on their little new journey and path within our company. So
at this point, we weren't an investment fund. Amy and I, we each personally did our own real estate, but we weren't actively doing real estate as a company at this point. And we were a consultant company, and we consulted a lot of real estate gurus and real estate thought leaders, but also internet marketing thought leaders, energy healing thought leaders, and all kinds of different fields and industries. And so what Gretchen kind of role was at that point in time is whatever educational programs that any of those thought leaders had, her job was to kind of translate that off to the students or translate that off to people that were, wanting to do, having mentoring and coaching and those kind of things. So she really had to get this crazy. I mean, what was the craziest? Was it the energy healing?
I think the Healers Library group of people, because essentially I was taking an educational workbook, talking to them about funnels, talking about taglines, because essentially we were developing websites for them. I had no idea what I was talking about, but I took this book, had weekly calls with them, ran with it. Then essentially, once I finally met you and you had taken a step back from the consulting and the traveling just to be in the office more since we decided to move locations, this is when you said, you know what, I'm going to take you the real estate side and we're going to start growing the company. My response was, I don't know anything about real estate, don't know what I would do to assist. And your response was, you're going to figure it out. And that's what I did.
Yeah, and it was pretty intense because before Gretchen had joined the company, myself, Amy, and our former partner Randall, one of the founders of RAD, we had done real estate education, we had done real estate investing, we had done commercial real estate investing, and then we kind of pulled back from the investing and went deep into the consulting, maybe from like 2012 to 2015, 15 to 16-ish. And so in 2015 is when I started the first Regulation D private equity investment fund. And so essentially, Gretchen got thrown into the wolves. And I think the first task I ever gave you was, hey, I bought this house, figure me out how to get an investment loan on it, or contact these 4 companies.
I had 3.
And get 3 companies and get me an investment loan on it, which was not her favorite job, because now our loan department here's, you know, five people, and, you know, people that have been doing loans their entire adult life and those kind of things. So that was pretty crazy. And you were pretty stressed out.
I was very stressed out. I was so intimidated, not only just because I didn't have the knowledge to get the job done, but the fact that you're like, these are hard deadlines. This should have been done already. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? So every day asking probably 50 questions, coming back to you, giving me the answers. I'd go back to the lenders. Then we would regroup, and I just felt like I was stuck and I wasn't moving forward. And then we had a conversation. I needed to bring on a loan officer. And that's when we introduced Caroline to the company, and here she is with us.
Yeah, all these years later. She's now been with us like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, going on, I think, 5 years now.
Going on 5 years. So the amazing part, you know, with Gretchen over the years, and now she's really found a home, right? All of you know she's our director of investor relations. She manages a great team here, you know, with our investor relations. She's also, you know, our inner circle, you know, leader when it comes to our retreats and our excursions and really relationships. And also the other thing she does is she keeps the inner circle war board. So the inner circle war board is any new member that joins our inner circle, until their first deal is done and they're invested and they know that they're going to make a profit and make money, they stay up on the war board. And so she keeps that war board and takes, you know, a lot of pride in, 1, making sure the retreats, you know, deliver major impact, but 2, really, you know, making sure that war board is complete, you know, every cycle. So that's pretty cool. Share a little bit about investor relations and how you came into that role, and, you know, and now you've, you know, been there for years.
Yeah. So essentially after Caroline came into the picture, I was able to focus more on the new investors that we're bringing on board through with the equity fund. As you guys were going on the auction trips, selling the live auctions, you were coming back. These are the new people that joined. So then at that point, my goal was to contact, you know, just, you know, touch every investor who came in, establish those relationships, ask them what their needs are, making sure they got established from an accounting standpoint for their account statements, you know, to be sent out to them, and just really working more so with accounting closely, because at that time there was only still about, I think, 5 of us in that first office. So we were very small, very boutique style. And I think that's one of the things as we've grown as a company that I personally pride myself in, because coming from that growth, a small intimate group of us, and then moving to our next office because we just outgrew our first one, as we decided, okay, we need to expand the accounting department. We need to expand and start bringing marketing on board a little bit heavier on our side, so we can really, you know, get our name out there and grow as a company, what it was going to take. So then we moved to our second office in Upland, and it was myself, Andrew, Caroline, you, Randall at that time, and Dalen. And still going into this boutique style, I just remember all of the meetings you had just with this vision as what you wanted the company to be one day. And it didn't matter what it was going to take, you were going to get it done. We're going to get there. So through all of the different routes and avenues we've taken on with the investors, what are we going to do to make it better? You just continuing to grow internally to get our name out, working with Amy, just meeting after meeting. How are we going to make this vision happen, not only for our investors, but for our families? Because with our company, family comes first with you and Amy. And that's I hold that near and dear to my heart, because you guys have supported every step of the company, my journey with you guys, for me as an employee and for my family. And I'm very appreciative for that.
Well, we're just as grateful, you know, for you. And that's, you know, I think there's an exchange that happens in relationships. And over the years, you know, our bond as coworkers and colleagues has grown stronger and stronger. And I mean, even your toughness in different ways has grown stronger and stronger. And that allows you to be able to be, the person you want to be, every single day. And that support that we receive from you, we want to give back to our team over and over and over. And if over the years, anybody who's ever deserved, our support back, it's you. And I love that about our relationship and the bond that we've built over the years. It's fascinating when we look at, when we were those 6 people in Upland, and by the time we left Upland 2 years later, we were,
sardines. We
were sardines, right? I think we were 17 people, 16, 17 people in that tiny office. And tiny is a couple thousand square feet. And then, we moved to this office, which is, 9,000 square feet. And then our Florida office is 17,000 square feet. And so we're approaching 70 employees. But back then, your investors were 20 was a big month to 30, but 20 was really still a pretty big month for investors. And then in August of 2021, we brought in 1,000 investors in 1 month. And I think this month in January of 2021, I think we'll do over 500 new investors joining the RAD family in this month, which is pretty good. And there'll be many, many, many months this year where that many investors join the RAD family. And, I hope we have another big 1,000 investors to join the RAD family. So tell me, you personally, how you've handled change, because lots of times there's this age-old saying, the people that help you get there aren't the people that help you get to the next there. Right. And obviously you're a part of, the family that gets us to the next there. And you've been able to change and adapt, and you're still going through some of those changes, and so that some of that adaptation and being a leader, but being a servant, being a leader, being a servant, right? And that's, I believe servant leadership is the greatest leadership in the world. But talk people through, like, how is that, like, what's the toughest parts?
I think prior to moving here, as we grew within our Upland office, one of the biggest shifts was the flow or the direction of the company as a whole, like where the vision was and how that was mapped out. One day it was 5 of us. Okay, well, you need to bring 2 more people onto your team, because as we expand and the REIT grows, you're not going to be able. I went from 200 investors. Now at that point, we were like pushing 1,000. This didn't include me managing the inner circle tribe of members that we have. And those relationships are completely separate. And I have very, close relationships with those members, as well as, I was able to touch them every day with a conversation as we grew as a company, and the relations part of it with our REIT investors and the fund investors, the joint venture partners, just everything else that encompassed with all of our investment vehicles. It was harder and harder for me to be able to continue those daily communications and touching base with them. And that's something I pride myself in, because I felt that having those conversations, I was able to establish that trust. And when they had that trust and that comfortability with not only me helping manage their money and, their long-term retirement, they felt more comfortable investing more with us. They were more comfortable with referring family and friends to us. And that is a big part of our company as well. On our side of the company, we've gotten so many referrals, and that has just been a whole other, outlet of investors that we've gained, that, every single day it's somebody new. But being able to manage that part, doing the hiring, making sure that these new team members that I've added on are going to be the right fit, because I know in my heart what I want, and it's easier for me to be like, I'll just do it myself, because I was so used to being a one-man show up until this point.
I don't want to say, like, so Jen was your first
correct
personal team member, and obviously Jen's still with us.
Right.
And I don't want to say she was forced upon you, but there was definitely had to be a lot of encouragement.
Yes.
And then, how was it that first time Jen handled a phone call with an investor and it wasn't you yourself handling that phone call?
I was sitting there ear hustling the whole conversation. Essentially, I had her sitting on a lot of my calls, but I'm like, okay, I'm throwing you out there. This is how I learned, and I'm going to do the same thing to you, because I felt, you're going to fail. And I needed her to know it's okay to fail, because I've had plenty of my own, that I can count. So you're only going to grow from here. So I sat there, and all I could think in the back of my head is my first day when I started back at your house, sitting in the garage, and I had to call this person, and I had an ex-employee who was my manager.
Yeah, Mike.
Mike Walker. He was literally just hovering over in my ear, talking to me, telling me what I was doing wrong while I'm trying to have this conversation with this, potential investor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to hang up. I was ready to die. Like this, I just felt mortified. And I didn't want to do that to her, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that she knew that I was there and it was okay. So obviously after that first call, this is what you did great. I think these are the areas we can improve on. What do you think you could change for the next call?
I think that's one of the hardest things managers or people that are developing people, one of the hardest things for them to get is you have to allow people to fail. And that's very challenging. A great example, like our social media director just hired, a new person within his department. I didn't know if she was being hired, and I didn't interview her, and I didn't see her resume. And a part of me is kind of like, well, like I know hiring and especially in the marketing and the real estate side of the business, I really, pride myself on us hiring incredible people. And at the same time, I have to say to myself, I have to let them hire and succeed, and I have to let them hire and fail. And as long as you're in a place where failure's taught, then you're okay. And so that failure's taught, concept is really, really important.
Yeah. So that, once I finally I was okay with the fact that, okay, I've got this new team member. Now I've got to take the time to provide her with the education and the training, because I needed her to know that it's going to be a journey to get to where I am, and just with the investors and having those different relationships, because now you're dealing with different personalities. And I think that's one of the biggest things too. And the best advice that I could give that I learned being a manager in different fields prior to working here was I had to learn to be a listener, because I was so quick to take things personal, and I felt like I was being attacked by either that customer or that investor. And it's like, wait, it's not you personally. They're just trying to tell you and express how they're feeling and what their struggles are and what I can do to help them. So being a listener is huge. And changing my mindset with that helped me and build those relationships. Just listening, what does this investor need? And that's all it took.
Well, and I think, over the years, you understand, like in real estate, in business, nothing is perfect, right? An investor doesn't get in a statement. An investor got a statement, but they say they didn't get a statement.
Right.
The email disappeared, whatever reason, not even their fault, but whatever reason. An inner circle member has a rehab that takes too long. There's just, endless amount of things that happen, and it's going to happen. Right. And I think one of the things over the years is it's very easy to take a small amount of information, right, and allow it to make you feel a certain way about the whole, right? And so one of the things I've always, prided ourselves on is, take the good with the bad, right? But also when there's bad is to listen and fix quickly.
Right.
And I think that's always, been our philosophy, is to listen and fix quickly, and provide, action behind the listening. Because if all you do is listen, right, then it's not enough, right? But I think over the years, we've gone from, we're up to, 70 people as a team. And we'll probably be at 150 people at a team in 12 to 18 months. And so culturally, we're fighting hard, right, to keep the RAD culture, to keep, the inspiration, to keep the motivation, to keep the taking care of each other and taking care of the family and taking care of the investors and the students. Right. So, how do you feel like we've done with that in the last, 6 months? And what do you think we have to do in the next year to hold on to that culture?
I think for me, from my standpoint, just seeing the growth. Now, my team has grown to 4. So we've brought on another relations liaison, and then I've brought on a Mandarin relations liaison who handles our clientele. And then we just brought Leah on board as our new inner circle coordinator. So she's fairly new to the team. So for me, being able to manage and make sure there's flow to our department, because it's very vital to the rest of the company. Essentially, we're touching now those investors, our inner circle members, especially Leah, getting to know them every single day, because
I think your department, for our reputation as a company, right, is probably, granted, we're gonna do our returns, we're gonna make our money regardless, but money's not reputation, right? Money creates a certain type of good reputation, but I think the people create the real reputation, the relationship on top of the money. And so I think your department's responsibility with reputation is as heavy as anybody's.
It's vital. It's
in
key.
The company. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for me is for us to continue the education with the staff that we have. You've done a couple trainings with the staff. We've brought in to do management training with all the directors in the company, which I think has opened up a lot of different areas where not only personally myself, I can definitely, grow as I start managing my team, and as it continues to grow, the educational piece is important. And I think bringing the sides together, we have a lot of new hires. A lot of our new staff don't know each other. Maybe you've said hi in passing, but not really engaged enough to really know one another yet. And I think we've grown so fast that we need to be able to understand where every department is coming from and what their needs are, so we can make sure that we can work together and have a flow as to, what you're doing here has a direct reflection as to what I respond to, in a conversation with an investor, how vital that information is, or vice versa. So
I remember being in Zappos, Tony Shaves, the founder of Zappos, and God rest his soul, one of the thought leaders, or one of the business inspirational leaders I've followed during my lifetime. And he called it collisions. And so he loved to set up within his environment with Zappos before it sold to Amazon. He loved to set up collisions where apartments would have collisions, even, restroom collisions or elevator collisions or water cooler collisions, but setting up those kind of things. And so maybe, we have collisions in different ways, but I think we could schedule facilitated, collisions in different ways to create a deeper understanding of every single day. Because one of my default partner rules, right? And I have default partner rules over the years, right? And I always, Randall as a founder and Amy as my partner today, we've always talked about those rules. And with one of the things I always said is, my partners are doing more than I ever know they're doing, and their intentions are better than I ever realized their intentions could be. So stop whatever you're thinking, right? And go back to those defaults. Because it's so easy when you're in investor relations to say, man, those marketing guys get everything they want and they're a little bit lazy, right? And it's so easy as the marketing guys to say, man, if those investor relations people just talked to a little more musical to the investors on the phone, they'd be getting more sales and they'd be getting more investments, right? But it's all a symphony, and but it's a symphony with many composers and many leads. And yeah, there could be one director, in the front, but at the same time, it's really about you guys directing. And that's the hardest part for me is, as we're scaling and growing, I've got to just surrender, because I've been such, the last, whatever amount of time, and whatever I'm doing, I'm in complete control of, and I'm a control freak with it. But then just the letting go is really, really probably
and
hard for me.
And I think that trickles down with us in our departments too. Like me having to let go and be like, okay, Gretchen, it's time. You've got to hire. Okay. Well, I don't consider myself a control freak, but I wore so many hats for so long. It's like, the inner circle, these are my people. I brought Leah.
That's something a control freak would never say. Well, it's like when you're passionate and you care about something, you're going to stay more in alignment and more in control of it. When you're not, then obviously, you don't need to have as much alignment, with that thing. But I also feel like, me personally, by letting go, I've been able to be more connected to the leadership than I was even 12 months ago, because I let go of some things that I was holding on to.
Right. And I think so far being in the office with the growth, I think our team culture here is great, but we don't necessarily know, like I said, the back end, like what all is social media. Like most people, if you asked them, they just post pictures on social media all day. They don't know the back end of what they're doing, as they may not know everything that we're doing, what loans, what all that entails. You have Taylor who, came on with us, almost a year and a half, maybe this August will be 2 years, and just came in like a warrior and just took over what needed to initiatives here, and, has changed a lot of the culture.
In a lot of ways, her just taking the SEC off my hands was heaven sent to me.
So she's done a phenomenal job, and I think, Mary...
Not a criticism to the people at the SEC, just trying to figure out how to make sure we abide by exactly what you guys laid out, because we respect you and appreciate what you do to protect the American public, just to be clear.
Yeah, so she's done an amazing job with that. Mary and her team have taken on, different team bonding and team building challenges within, our office here, I think, which is great. But again,
I always say, like, new employees, right, from 0 to 3 months, they're going to kind of suck.
Yeah.
From 3 to 6 months, they start to kind of get their feet grounded.
They're shy.
And from 6 months beyond, they can start to kind of work and move and succeed. And then after a year, there's an owner. The 1 year mark, there's a special ownership. There's a special thing that they take with it. But in our company, they don't have 0 to 3 months to suck, right? It's just impossible to come in. Like I just give a great example. Like guys in this room, like Zach, started in week 1. It's like, hey, so our new podcast is beginning next week, and you're the executive, you're the producer, and you're going to be cutting up clips and doing those kind of things. And he's done great, but he's been thrown to the fire. But I also think fire equals results sometimes.
You know what? That's how I was taught. That's how you taught me. You and Amy both pushed me, gave me things to do, tasked them out, and said, handle it. We're here, whatever resources you need, but at the end of the day, this is the deadline. You're going to figure it out. And that's how I learned a lot, and you just kept pushing, and I'm grateful for that. In the beginning, I struggled in many ways, and we butted heads a lot through a lot of those earlier transitions to where
I don't ever remember butting heads, ever.
I just couldn't get stuff done in a timely fashion, and it was just, I'm just on the struggle bus here. But, Well,
let's talk about, there was a moment of breakthrough for us, back, I know it was before the Upland office.
Yes.
It was in the Rancho office off of Arrow Street. And I remember surrendering to Amy. I said, Amy, I think Gretchen's really awesome, but I can't figure out, how to help her go to the next level. Mm-hmm. And she's in a new role, doing new tasks, doing new jobs, and it's hard. I said, can you step in? And over the years, I've done that with Amy a great many times. When I get stuck, I ask her to step in. She's a farm manager than I'll ever dream of being. So talk about, that time and what happened and just kind of that breakthrough, because from then on, I felt like, nothing's ever perfect, but at the same time, I felt like you took on a whole new run. Like you took an ownership with us that for me was different. I don't know if it was new, but it was different.
I think because I really didn't have an established title, and you were throwing so many different challenges, and tasks to me to do within the real estate side, not knowing anything about it, and you telling me to figure it out, I was at my wit's end. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what is my distinct role here? What am I supposed to be achieving aside from go get a loan? Okay, here's your loan. I finally got it done. Okay, move on to the next one. And I was just like, what is the end result here going to be for me? And I think we were just...
You never would have thought of what it is today.
Not in a million years. Because in that transition to when we moved even to the new office, after we finally got through, I felt like I was just pounding my head against the wall. I was so frustrated. I didn't know how to communicate with you. I felt, over the years, I called them, you have to, once you get to know Dutch, you'll understand his Dutchisms. as I like to call them, and reading between the lines. And him telling you 2 words means a complete paragraph in a sense. And over time, as you continue to grow and you're engaged with him more, you're going to understand the Dutchisms. Once I established that and really just got down to, okay, this is what my role is going to be moving forward with these investors, is basically
any quote we do for like the next month should be a picture of Gretchen going Dutchisms.
That's what I like to call them. Having those relationships with the investors, you know, it turned into, that was going to be my role, essentially. Then we got into the joint venture partnerships, which took on a little bit of that. We really didn't have anybody handling that. So, okay, Gretchen, let's, get these contracts done, whatnot. Started taking on that a little bit more, and then we pushed through that. But I think you and I had finally sat down and just kind of had our come to Jesus meeting. It was either, you can either grow into this role and learn, this is what I need from you, or it's not going to work out, essentially. That's what it came down to for us. And we just hashed it out. We talked about our feelings and, my personal, just what I was struggling with, just trying to get out of you what exactly you wanted from me at the end of the day, because it was just a fast transition. Okay, come on, we're going to come over here. We're going to start opening this fund and you're going to start doing this. Well, what does that mean? I didn't have any real guidance on what my role was. So once we finally established that, it was a game changer. Then I knew what the expectation was. This is exactly what you needed me to do and how we were going to grow. And this was going to be my role.
It's fascinating because I listened to you and I realized how much chaos, right, that I create, how much chaos, I definitely put our team through, right? And granted, today it's easy to say, well, iron was forged from chaos, right? But at the same time, right, I never see chaos. And so that's the crazy part about my mind is I don't see chaos. So when I go into buying a farm, for the first time, a year and a couple months ago, right? I didn't see a chaos. I just saw a farm and all the things that need to be created and done on with, our American Survivalist Project, right? Or I said, we're going to launch American Survivalist Project. And I didn't see the poor, Leonard, our, creative director, and the chaos I was going to put him through, because I just see task and product and the next thing. And I don't, have, any that I know of mental disorders that cause me not to see chaos. I just see, the vision.
Well, you have the visions. Yeah. And that was the thing. You're always been about visions with the company, and, we're going to get there. We may hit some bumps and bruises along the way. But
somewhere along the line, I did start to realize the chaos that I put you guys through, right? And I got better at limiting your chaos to at least a version of the business, right? Versus trying to expose you to the whole chaos of the entire business. So I, yesterday, our social media director was working with a couple of the marketing guys, and they were talking about the REIT price, and they were actually, on the wall over here, and they're writing the price, and if it keeps on this pace, what it'll be in 2 years or 4 years, or how that would possibly happen, or different things. And I'm thinking to myself, if they had any idea on this side how much we're doing within Taylor's office with the SEC to create overlapping REITs and create the different things we have to do, right? It would be too much, and for me sometimes, I look at everything and it's too much,
it's
and then
overwhelming. It can be.
I have to condense it down to what the most important next action is. So I got you on the time, my friend. What did it say? Oh, okay. So Zach, you can talk anytime you want, brother. I got you. I know you're just being polite. Inner Circle Las Vegas is coming up, and you've been doing detailed, deep planning into that. And so talk about, what a retreat is like. Actually, rather than talking about how awesome this retreat is going to be, let's talk about the first time you ever planned a retreat and how what that chaos was like, and how it ended up being an incredibly successful retreat. But if they only knew what it was like 24 hours before it started, talk a little bit about that.
My first Inner Circle retreat was actually in Las Vegas. So before we grew to the large Inner Circle group we have now, it was about, at that point, I was at about, I think, 25 to 30 at that time. So we always like to host in a beautiful mansion where, it's a more intimate environment with you and Amy and the investors, just because it's
a place to hang out.
Correct.
And learn.
We can, have great conversation, have meetings. The other inner circles are able to network with one another. And I think that's one of the biggest, I love that about our group, because essentially you come to one retreat.
They become close.
They come walking out the door like they've known each other for like the last 20 years. And I love that about these trips. So rented this beautiful house, paid for it. I always go online, get them through VRBO, Airbnb. Didn't think it was going to be a problem. 24 hours before, I got an email notification saying, "What are you talking about? We don't have your confirmation. This house is rented to somebody else." I wanted to crawl in a hole and die. I remember coming to you and I just have tears rolling down my face like, I'm going to be fired right now. We're supposed to be in Las Vegas hosting this event. What am I going to do? Like, this just blew up in my face. I was literally on my computer the next 24 hours. We ended up having to rent a $10,000 a night penthouse at the Palms, because that was the only thing available overlooking everything, and didn't know if it was going to be big enough to host us. But
now you get people out there, and there's always haters in the world. They're like, "Oh, you guys rented a $10,000 penthouse." Renting a hotel meeting space is far more expensive.
Yes.
So it's actually the much more cost-effective way of doing things, and you get to have a lot more fun at the same time. And I always believe in life, if you can spend the same amount of money and have a lot more fun and a lot better experience, then better. It's like if I can pay the same amount of money for a house that someone else paid for a house, and my house is worth more money and easier to sell, then I've bought the right house.
Yeah. So we came into this just blind. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect, how the setup was going to be, if we were going to have enough room for everybody. It worked out at the end of the day. I think it was a little bit hot in the room just because of all the bodies in there, the air. It just wasn't what it needed to be. We had a chef coming in to bring food.
I don't really remember the temp being a challenge, but maybe others did.
We had a beautiful view,
it was a beautiful view
of the city. Everybody loved it, but that was not the goal, and that was not the environment I was hoping for, because that was where one of the Floyd Mayweather, that was right where his entourage was. And so there were people coming in and out, not very appropriate. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just not the look.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful place.
It was.
Yeah.
And it turned out it worked out, but definitely learned from that, and just making sure that I always double check everything, especially with rentals, because
I just remember
things happen.
I just remember Oscar's face. So Oscar played college baseball for me at Chaffey College, and Oscar was just had started being an intern with us. And it's fascinating because, as I coached, community college baseball as a hobby, right? I had these players, and I would talk to them about life and different things, and I would talk to them about just, everything when it comes to, good decisions with employment, good decisions with starting their own business someday, and everything else. There's a part of it they got, but a part of it they can never fully conceptualize. And if I ever go back and coach again, I'll bring my people into my world a little bit more. I just kept the worlds very separate. Yeah. But I just remember Oscar's face when he saw that meeting space, that penthouse for the first time. And then he, like a lot of things I'd been training and teaching him for those years while he was playing for me, like it all some of it just kind of turned and clicked. And I don't know if Pat was there too. I don't think
Johnny
he was
there.
One. Yeah.
Dalen's son, Johnny, was there to help as well. So we were, very intimate with our group and our setting, but I mean, it was great in a sense, because you and Amy were just to be able to have those closer connections and those, conversations, it forced a lot of it, but it was good because, again, like I said, our inner circle members, first time meeting one another, and they walked out like, new friendships.
Because I'm great for like a window of like socializing or connecting and talking, but then my window expires. Like my patience level for casual conversation, I'm not as great at it as I used to be better at it. But I guess as I continue, I just get less and less patience.
That's why you have us there.
That's right.
We have those conversations.
But I love talking to my inner circle members when I get to know them, and our REIT investors when I get to know them. It's kind of more of like when I feel like it's superficial,
right?
Then it kind of grosses me out.
Sense.
It's like I never wanted to be a thought leader or a leader where like it was fake, and I hated the fake thought leaders, and I hated the fake, communicators, because it just, I don't know, it makes my skin crawl.
But I think the big difference with our company and our business and how you and Amy have grown it, you are a CEO, you are an owner that is very tangible. And it makes a big difference. Like you have these phone calls. What CEO has phone calls with their investors on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, if needed, to have those conversations about their investments? Again, it's all about that trust and them being able to understand where you're coming from as not just, somebody running $1 million company, but you are a human being. You are a family man. You are a father. You're about family and taking care of everybody within the company and, your own. But
now over the years, I have come to you to get paired. So Gretchen's got grown kids and younger kids, right?
Yes, I do.
And they're spaced out. How far between the oldest and youngest? 15
Dariel and Michaela. Dariel's 24, Michaela's 17. So seven years between.
No, that's between your oldest and second oldest, but between Dariel and Bailey.
Oh, yeah. They're 24 and 11.
Wow. So 13 years. So I have brothers that are 14 and 16 years older than me, but I have 5 and 6 year olds. So I've come to her for parenting advice over the years, especially with high performing, high intense children. Because she has very high performing and very intense children that are very driven. And so I'm just curious, people that are out there that want to see their kids succeed. They want to see their kids make it. I mean, I think every parent wants that, but there's parents who are consciously, proactively in their kids' lives and present in their kids' lives. And then there's parents who don't actually completely understand what that is. It's not that they wouldn't want to be.
Right.
But they don't actually fully understand that, right? And I struggle with like being a workaholic, balancing with presence with my children, and like I'm a really great dad, I say, for a few hours, and then after that, like I get my mind drifts back to like focusing on work and job and career.
And you want your alone time.
Yeah, and I like my alone time. So talk to people about raising some really successful children. I mean your youngest two, not to say the book's still out on them, but they still have a ways to go, but you're pretty confident Michaela's, deadly on the right track, and Dario's already, had a successful, her life is in the right place. So talk a little bit about that, because I think every parent, that's a constant worry for them.
I think, so my husband and I have been married going on 25 years. We met in high school. He was an athlete. He played baseball. He got drafted. We were senior in high school. He played soccer as well, but that wasn't his focus. I played, but I was clearly not the athlete of, they got those genes from dad, and playing through college and so forth. And he's been coaching on the side for the last 25 years. I think the structure, laying that out, you want to be involved in sports, you give 110% effort all the time, not only in sports, but in the classroom, just whatever you're doing. You can have a really bad game, but at the end of the day, if I see you gave 110%, I'm okay with that. You may not win all the time, I'm okay. But not making excuses for them. I mean, we're very honest with our kids. Like, all of our kids play soccer. Our oldest, she got a scholarship, played in college. She plays on a semi-pro team now. She's in graduate school. Michaela, she's a goalie. She got a full ride scholarship to a university. She graduates this year. She's a goalie. Our kids are very driven because through the structure of being an athlete and just in that world, we've mapped that out for them as well in order to be successful. Like, we're not going to force you to, to play. It's entirely up to you. But whatever you decide to do, you better give 110%. Like, you're not going to quit unless you're physically incapable of doing so. So
kids that are driven that way, right? They all hit a breaking point at some point, right?
I agree.
They're all going to hit a point of and I didn't have a place because I was driven that way. and then I hit a point of breaking, but there was nowhere to turn to, nowhere to go to, right? I physically, broke down, and I don't know if I ever fully I didn't have a full mental, but at the same time, there's a point where I checked out of the sport a little bit when I physically broke down. How do you handle that with your kids when they go through those moments, or how do you even recognize it when you see that they're, okay, this is that time when you got to step in?
I think because we are so transparent and honest with our kids, they don't have a problem expressing their feelings with us. I mean, we've had multiple conversations with them. They had a bad game, or they're, with their teammates, and they feel that they're giving it and the rest of the team isn't. They're frustrated. I'm done with this team. I cannot tell you how many times they've walked in the door like, I'm done. Done. Why? It can't be that bad. And then just talking through that conversation.
It's kind of teaching them how to be a human being.
Yeah, that's life. It's not great all the time. You're going to have to, be involved and engage with people throughout your whole life that you necessarily may not like, but there's a mutual respect there, especially in the working force. Unless you're your own, own your own company and you make the rules and you're working for somebody, you're going to have to learn to adapt and adjust to that. But know that, it's not, patty cake. As you get older, like these challenges and struggles that you have, and I think it's great when your child is involved in some type of, whether it be sports or whatever it is, because there is a structure that's set in place and it changes that mindset.
But coaching helped me a lot.
Yes.
Understanding that I had to adapt and adjust, being an assistant coach. And that was really hard, to be an assistant coach at a junior college when, I owned my own company and I owned my own business. And it was the first time in maybe 10 years, I had to take direction from, I really had to take direction from someone, right? And there was a surrender to that. And I was okay. I really have a difficult time following bad leaders, but I'm okay with following a good leader, and so that was, a challenge for me as I went through that process. But as I watched head coaches, and then I would go back and think of the head coaches when I played, and I thought of when I coached, at the university level, for those years, I would look at how the head coaches didn't adapt to their players. And I would see that as a big, I don't know, I've never been blessed enough to be around, an NCAA champion coach. I've been around some great, amazing coaches, some incredible coaches, but never the highest level, right? But in my experience, what I saw is the weakness that was keeping, I think, a lot of coaches from being able to develop their players to their fullest potential was the ability for the coach to adapt to the player, because they always wanted the players to adapt to the coach. And so as I run my business, there's a lot of times I want the team to adapt to what I want, because there's a vision and there's also things that I know work and don't work. But then at the same time, as a leader, I know that I have to adapt to them.
Right.
I have to adapt to you. I have to adapt to Taylor. I have to adapt to Gretchen. I have to adapt to Caroline. I have to adapt to Andrew. I have to adapt to Vinny, Andrew, Leonard, all of the different leaders in the company. And for all of you leaders that didn't get mentioned, if you listen to this, don't be sensitive. And at the same time, that was big for me, is that ability to adapt to them. And so that open communication you have and being able to see them when they're in those moments and be able to adjust parenting probably a little bit.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we had, Daryl always said early on, I'm not going to coach our kids, because having to separate dad watching from the sideline, dad watching as a coach, and having those hard conversations.
So has he stuck to that?
He has. And as he's gotten, as we've grown and gotten older with the kids, and, he's been coaching forever. He has other mentors and coaches that he's very close with that have coached our kids through the years, and they have those relationships. I think it's great that the kids have those different sounding boards, but at the end of the day, sometimes they think, oh my gosh,
only one
dad's mean, or, dad always think his way is the best way. At the end of the day, they respect it and know that grind and that push has gotten them mentally, not just physically, but mentally, where they want to go.
And some things you appreciate
And they don't realize exactly.
I'm sure Darielle appreciates it way more.
Absolutely.
Probably Michaela's starting to way more than.
Sometimes she struggles with that because, again, very brutally honest, but I think that mentally has, they're stronger because of it. And a lot of kids these days, they don't have that just structure. And, parents want to coddle their kids and not want to hurt their feelings with the truth. Well, you're not doing them any favors at the end of the day. But I think that's also, just through life itself.
Micah, my 5-year-old, he's been kicked out of class, school, multiple times in 6 months. He is a little fighter. And I grew up, I was a little fighter too, so I kind of understand. But the way my dad trained me to be able to control emotion and temper and anger was to push me to the brink of emotion, temper, and anger, very, unhealthy.
Right.
And so that's something I deal with now with him is teaching him through it, but also laying out consequences for him. I was like, look, if your dad did what you did at school today, I'd go to jail. And at the same time, you got to balance it because I don't want him to be bullied. And I definitely don't want him to be picked on. And, his older brother's, his 6-year-old older brother's, a giant. And so that actually giants get picked on. People don't realize that. And because older kids will pick on them and other kids their own age will pick on them because they're not, in the same exact category as everyone else. And my kids will never be in the same category as everyone else, but it's just maybe that dad pride. So, that feeling.
Yeah.
I think we're, any questions that people want to ask, want to jump into? I almost wrapped up without getting feedback from the crowd and the audience that are on. So
I have 2 questions.
Sometimes they ask questions, sometimes they don't. So
I do have 2 questions here, but I do have some shout outs to Gretchen here. Alex from Facebook says, I enjoy dealing with Gretchen. She helped me on my solo 401k.
Thank you, Alex.
Kevin from Zoom says that Gretchen is an amazing person and she handles my deals, especially with my self-directed IRA. So shout out to Gretchen.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, first question. Do you expect tax auction to reopen as soon as RAD to go buy properties because of the tax auctions?
So this is really a fascinating evolution of us as a company. 6 years ago, we were tax auction investors. In 2018, we started to become RAD Diversified. And kind of what I mean by that is we dove into becoming a more diversified real estate investment company. But what that did is it prepared us for the 2020 crash. A lot of people don't understand there was a real estate crash in 2020 when the pandemic first hit hard. Lenders weren't lending. They weren't giving money to investors. And if they did, it was incredibly expensive. And then there was stagnation in the market. This is before the fast real estate appreciation at the end of 2020 through 2021. And so that prepared us for that, to be ready when it was coming, because I'm very blessed, and I can't always say that it comes from research and study. A lot of it does, but I'm very blessed with instincts when it comes to the economy, and really I can't thank anyone but God for that gift. And so I knew something was changing. I knew something was coming. I knew the market and real estate was changing. And I just, monitored, home builders, and I monitor developers, and I monitor national housing prices, and I monitor so many different things and then I take in information from thought leaders and gurus that are in the field and industry to be able to. So I started to move a little bit away from tax auctions in 2018. When the pandemic hit, the foreclosure moratoriums came and there was no tax auctions for about 2 years. They're only now starting to come back. But the challenge I have with tax auctions is the title seasoning takes time. Now, there's a company called Tax Title Services, a shout out to them. They're a great company. They can help people season title, help cycle things over faster. But at the same time, our model of buying in a highly appreciating economy, of buying with leverage, our lenders paying for our rehab, we're using less of our capital and more of bank capital. And so when investors invest with us, they're only putting in 20% of the capital that we utilize in order to do deals and transactions. And we're using banks and companies' money to make everybody money beyond that. And so what's amazing about that is the amount of money you can put to work in an appreciating, fast-paced economy is the amount of returns you can make. And so the reason our returns are good is because of that systematic process. Now, if inflation stops, interest rates go up, 1% interest rate isn't going to impact us as a company, but a 5% hike will make an impact on the market, right? So as I look at things, I'm constantly analyzing. So then we start to shift to more of a cash buying company because now we're in a situation where it's all about cash flow. And so you kind of adjust strategies. And so in a cash flow based strategy, we focus more on tax liens and more on tax deeds, because in that model, that's a very good model. And a highly appreciating marketplace, it's not a great model. Can I still buy good, cheap properties from tax liens and deeds? Yes. But the maximum return is all about percentages. It's about math. And a tax lien or tax deed, after repair value, usually we're 20%, even though we might buy it 30 cents on the dollar, but it's still 50 cents to rehab it. Today we're buying at that same percentages, but we're able to use leverage and we're able to use someone else to pay for our rehabs versus having to pay for ourselves. Right. Now the market's changing, so we have to adjust. So I don't know, hopefully that's a long answer to a short question. I'm pretty passionate. I studied that one pretty deeply. So.
Last question here is, what can we expect at this year's retreat, IC retreat?
We don't tell you guys nothing.
That's a secret. Dutch likes to share that on our first opening day. So Friday morning, make sure you're there on time. The itinerary will be going out tomorrow via email. I will share only the specifics that you need to ensure that you're there bright and early Friday morning. Breakfast starts at 7. Full details tomorrow, so look for that. I look forward to meeting all of our new Inner Circle members that are going to be joining us, and a lot of our, long-term Inner Circle members as well. It's been a while, and I look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We'll have members that are there that have only been a part of the Inner Circle a couple weeks, and we'll have members that have been with us 6 years. So it's pretty cool. But thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you, Dutch.
Taking you out of your box one more time.
It's nice. I like it.
But you did great, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you for listening to the RAD Podcast, an exploration of wealth. For more information, please visit our website, www.raddiversified.com. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.